chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You can hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to
Good evening, Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Well, good afternoon and hello to our global family. Welcome to another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. I'm your host, Sabrina, and it's good to be back with you today. I hope your Thursday has been a productive one. I'm looking forward as we usher in the weekend, and definitely looking forward to tomorrow. That's Big Friday. And to all of my American friends and family out there, happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy American Thanksgiving. Or perhaps you may be one of those that are away and getting an early sleep to get out of bed in the next couple of hours to take advantage of those Black Friday specials as doors prepare to open very, very early in certain states. And with big block stores, it's no different here in the Cayman Islands, even though we have seen it increase where it has been extended from last week. But for all of you guys who are away and having Thanksgiving away, kudos to you. And I leave that to you. I leave that to all of you who are into that mayhem. It's just not me at all. But I applaud anybody who enjoys that type of excitement. It's just not for me. But I want to go into that a little bit later on. But before doing so, we know that right here on cmrtv.com that at the end of the day, programming is going to be scheduled now for 7 o'clock, like immediately after my show. So please, if you see me like just exiting stage left very quickly, it is not because I am cutting short. I'm getting ready because we are going full-fledged gung-ho on to making sure that the programming that comes after my show in the evening, that I don't go over in their time. So you will see me trying to wrap up in time so that whatever happens after 7 o'clock, that I give way to the next scheduled program here on cmrtv.com. But yes, the content you're about to hear, including any discussions, opinions from myself, guests, and or participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for specific concerns. Bridge Media and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. I want to, of course, still pick up all of my followers and subscribers and all of those who spread the word about what we're doing here on this platform. Thank you. I'm seeing you, and you are very much appreciated. Now let's get straight to it. Overnight, a frontal system is located across the southwest Florida that will continue to nudge towards the Northwest Caribbean and become stationary west of the Cayman area by Friday afternoon. Accompanied with this front will be an increase in cloudiness with possibility of some isolated showers lingering through Saturday afternoon, and a gradual increase in winds and seas are also expected. The weather forecast for tonight calls for partly cloudy skies with 30% chance of showers. Temperatures will fall to the upper 70s. Winds will be northeasterly at 5 to 10 knots. Seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Now, tomorrow's forecast calls for partly cloudy skies becoming cloudy at times with a 40% chance of showers from the afternoon with possible thunder. Temperatures will rise to the mid 80s with a heat index of 93. Winds will be northeasterly at 10 to 15 knots and seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. Now, tides for today, there'll be a low tide tonight at 10:11, and tomorrow a high tide is at 4:22 and a low tide at 9:58. Sun will set at 5:44 this evening, and sunrise tomorrow morning is at 6:42. The outlook is the possibility of isolated showers lingering across the Northwest Caribbean through the early weekend, and on Saturday, moderate to rough seas are expected as a ridge of high pressure builds in the wake of this front across the Northwest Caribbean. A small craft advisory will be issued for Saturday as a result of these seas reaching moderate to rough within the marine area. So there you have it. It's a good way to plan your weekend, whatever it is you're planning on doing. That's a good way to get you this time of the year, even though it's cooler, you can see 78 degrees. That's cool for us here. But you want to make sure that the weather is good no matter what. Hey, Connie Bonnie, how are you? Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Is this Ashley? Hello to you. And Damian Henry. Three top first commenters here this evening, and it's good to have you commenting. 936-8255 is the number to call. I know some of you come on a little later. I see it based on sometimes even after the show is over. Some of you are just tuning in, but we're going to continue to build this space. When we get on radio, it will all make sense for drive time in the evening. And for those who are, just eager to hear what is next, I thank you for tuning in with me, even on Thanksgiving. Now, here in the Cayman Islands, it's a little weird. I was preparing for today, and I don't want nobody to forget the fact that we have Cayman Thanksgiving coming up, And even though we were a British Overseas Territory jurisdiction, it seems to me like a lot of people have gotten very entrenched into the American tradition, that our Cayman Thanksgiving is Sunday, December the 7th. Now that is our Cayman Thanksgiving. And even though it only came about in 2010 by the Cayman Islands government as a way, just for those, if you didn't know, here is how that came about. That was founded in 2010, then by the government, as a way to pretty much here in the Cayman Islands unite the nation in gratitude after hurricane season, And the whole idea behind it was designed to be uniquely a Caymanian holiday and distinct from the U.S. Thanksgiving, even though both share the Cayman Thanksgiving and, as we're seeing today, themes of gratitude and family. That is really what the familiarities or similarities are. Now, because it is the first Sunday of December, that was chosen because it coincides with the official close, as I stated, about hurricane season, and a period that everyone knows has historically shaped the life of the Caribbean. So Cayman Thanksgiving, it will be officially observed on the 7th of December, and it is expected during that weekend that, Caymanians pretty much come together with loved ones, and much like the US and Canadian Thanksgiving traditions and what is expected around our table, similar to how you'd have turkey and the ham, or mostly turkey in the US. We will have meals highlighting our Cayman cuisine from those of you who are joining us from across the pond around the world, such as, and the infamous famous cassava cake, and heavy cakes as a whole, and dishes like, the good old turtle stew and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, we can have some turkey and ham as well during that time, but it is really to embrace Cayman cuisine. And you'd have your turtle, your Cayman style beef, your conch, that sort of stuff. If you're not for that, you can have whatever you want. Nobody's going to beat you up for that. But the whole idea was for us to embrace our delicacies, our dishes, our Caymanian dishes for that weekend. And, that's also the time where the holiday then emphasizes the ability to support our local farmers. This is where you've seen Luigi doing the big farm to table every Thursday night. That's happening tonight, by the way. Reservations is the way to go for that. And by us supporting our local farmers and using traditional recipes, we reinforce exactly what Cayman's agricultural heritage, and it builds into our own flavorings of our own dishes. So yeah, if you didn't know, now you know. And Cayman Thanksgiving is seen as well as the official kickoff of the holiday season for us here in the islands, even though it's a blend of what we're seeing Northern American influences with Caymanian traditions, creating what, us, a hybrid, a celebration that definitely reflects our diverse culture, but keeping it rooted in the fact that, it's our food, and we are just giving thanks for the official close of hurricane season. Now, beyond food and family, it's really and truly a time to reflect, give gratitude, and just give thanks, especially given our vulnerability to hurricanes. We saw how closely things came to us with Hurricane Melissa. And even though we may be given thanks, there are a lot of people who are still yet picking up the pieces in Jamaica. And we just need to keep them in our thoughts and our prayers. So, like I said, we have to give thanks for the feast, for the togetherness. It's really survival, gratitude. So at the end of the day, we still got to give thanks, and just embrace it for what it has given to us. Hey, Aliano, good evening to you. How are ya? Hope you keep them busy. How those tourists keep you going? Dorothy, Miss Dorothy, how are you? It's good to see you. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for joining me here on this platform. And I'm expecting a lot of you to be out tonight, probably for Thanksgiving. If you didn't have that type of style at work, it is infamous or famous for certain departments to do similar to a potluck, and you embrace this day. Now, for some of you, it maybe you've had those turkey and the trimmings for lunch. Probably you're going to do something similar tonight again. So I expect that. It's a norm. So it'll be interesting how much you still don't go sleepy or go sleep early. And if you're looking for the big deals, there's no need to be tearing down doors tomorrow. Because right here in the Cayman Islands, and you see A.L. Thompson's kicked it off, I think from 8 p.m. until midnight. That was last week, Thursday. Today's a week. So there's no need for the mayhem that was happening here. Yes. So for those of you just joining me, welcome to you. And it is going to be an open mic segment. The number is 936-8255. However, I'm noticing a topic that has been huge in discussion. I thought it was only fair for me to highlight it here because many of us travel. So you may have seen the title of our show that speaks about how we travel. Pajamas. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to get your takeaway on that. Hey, Miss Lucille, how you doing? Still up. Lots of blessings. Always stay safe. Thank you, my love. It's always good to hear from you over there in the UK. Keeping up And I know you, Miss Lucille. I thank you very, very much for your continued support and for the whole friends and family over there in the UK that supports not only Sabrina Speaks, but the entire CMR family. And we're going to keep it very informative here for you. But for those of you, again, like I said, who are just joining me, good evening, welcome. No guests today. You actually are steering it. Yesterday was a jam-packed show with what we shared, the information. And again, it's always getting feedback post-show. But I thank you for the compliments and for explaining that, it puts the different perspective on things. And again, I try to keep neutral and just share the information that is there with you. But there is one that, a topic that is sparking some laughter, and in some cases, even a little bit of outrage, but nevertheless, it's causing a debate. And should there be another topic that any one of you want to bring in, or maybe something from yesterday that I said you want to bring up, by all means, at any point in time, I'm here for it. Let's go. But this is all about you. And whatever is popping off, I'd like to get your opinion on it, because I am seeing split in conversations when it comes to certain persons or how people are being attired now, especially when travel. Now, if you didn't see it, there has been some headlines where the U.S. Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, he recently has gone viral with a statement that he's made asking travelers to stop wearing pajamas on flights. I said it. Stop wearing pajamas when you travel. Yeah, he has said it. He's asking people to just think about how they're presenting themselves and etiquette and all of that. And, for some, it may seem harmless, but more looking, especially for the red-eye flights, those long-haul flights. Miss Lucille, you'll know what I'm talking about. 12 hours on a plane or whatever, you may think is it harmless, or you're just going for comfort? And others say it's a breakdown of civility. And, I think that it's a perfect time, as we are proud persons when it comes to our national flag carrier, to talk about our Caymanian pride, as today is Thanksgiving, but it also comes in with pride and the way we travel, and then balancing between what is really freedom and a little bit of respect, or a lot of respect. So tonight, I'd invite you to weigh in on this, or give your comments on it and share your thoughts with me about what you think. You think he's overstepped? You think it's control? Is travel about comfort, or is it about respect? And what is your opinion on those who fly our national flag carrier, Cayman Airways? That shows the world that civility in the skies really looks like. And it's a reflection from what many have saying, from our perspective. We're so proud coming off of that flight as Caymanians, as locals. Do you feel we should actually dress in a way that reflects who we are and what we think about ourselves, and how we respect the flag carrier of Cayman Airways, just putting it into our own local context? It would be good to get your opinion. Barbara G, good evening to you, my sweet. How are you? They wear clothing that show ass, and also pajamas. Why? Plus, it's not anything Caribbean it's not any Caribbean persons wearing pajamas. Well, I could be honest with you, my friend. I'm going to share something with you, and I wish I saw that in the airport. Maybe my stomach wouldn't have gotten so upset. But I saw an incident where I was over in the Sister Islands, and I was in a restaurant. And I saw someone who entered the restaurant in their pajamas, but it wasn't pajamas like a long pants. It was like a Daisy Duke style bottom. And there was no panties. There was no undergarment under that. And they walked into the restaurant. And as a female, I was mortified. So I have seen certain trends that even though, and I take note of your comment with how this individual walked into the restaurant. And even though everybody just started looking at each other, they were more one shock that one would leave where they were staying to come into a restaurant undressed, you could actually say, but more so in shock. And is it just a thing where it's accepted? Where do you draw the line? Where do you actually say no? And I'll go into, for the form of this discussion, the rights of business owners and the rights of patrons, the rights of customers, and see where it ties in even with our Constitution in freedom of expression, right? But when you step onto our national flag carrier like Cayman Airways, in my humble opinion, you're not just boarding an aircraft. You're boarding a symbol of our national pride. And for what that turtle on the tail, the warmth of the crew, and, the sense of that you're being carrying Cayman with you wherever you go. And when you compare it to other airlines, some, it's all about efficiency. Some, they market and brand themselves as emphasizing luxury. But Cayman Airways emphasizes dignity and kindness from what I'm seeing. So this is something that far goes beyond freedoms. If you look at it in its true context, Damien Henry, people will wear whatever they are comfortable in. It's personal choice, even though I want to wear PJs. I wouldn't wear PJs on a flight. And you see, Damien, that's where the debate is coming. How far is too much when it comes to PJs? Because you got some really nice PJs that you can put on with a nice pair of heels and all that sort of stuff, and you would never know it's PJs. But how far do you go? Never seen that one before. Usually see the long suited ones, but usually white people I see with that. Yes, my dear, this has been witnessed. I would say there were at least 25, if not a little bit more persons dining at that restaurant that morning that witnessed that. And what was so sad is that the most voices that you heard or murmuring under their breath came from males. Women pretty much looked at one another like, what the heck? But the men were like, yo. And it wasn't a, yeah, yo. It was a, yo. And it's amazing how we can speak with different expressions. But that was what I witnessed. So when I saw this coming up, and then I saw this, that's where it sparked the conversation. I said, let me get your opinion. If that is one thing how do you feel when you travel? Understanding it's one's personal choice. So even when you look back to in the day, I'm a child of 1974. And I can recall when I traveled, you wanted to look your best. Some people actually went to the store and they bought a new outfit. And it was pretty much glamorous. Like, not saying you need to go into full suits but you looked really nice, which is why in certain airports, you now still have those booths where you polish your shoes. But back then, flying was seen as an event. But today, travel, it's almost as look like it's just diluted down. Not to say that TSA post 9/11 didn't change a lot and how we actually prepare ourselves, attire ourselves to travel. Because I could tell you, sometimes I wish I could go like how I see some of them, but that's just not in me. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind?
Well, you know how I feel about pajamas, right? Speaking of buying new outfits to go on the plane, now I know that you got BRCA in your bones too.
Uh-huh.
You remember when our mummies used to dress us up in the most frilly
The
dresses,
frills from Miss
socks,
Rose, from Miss Rose.
patent leather, buckle shoes, just to get on that plane to go to Cayman?
Yep. Yep,
That's all I called to say.
the Trilanda. We used to be well dressed to go to Quebec. I will never forget it. But thank you for sharing that. Mhm. But where is that gone? Where has that disappeared? It was an event, to be honest, and it's more accessibility. And sometimes I guess people are saying pajamas is the way to go. But then civility isn't just about clothing. It also brings a bit about respect. And that's also self-respect and respect for the space, for the staff, and for fellow passengers. You have all, I'm quite sure, anybody who has traveled recently, especially if you got connecting, you have seen some people that it looked like they didn't even wash, if you get that early morning flight, that it looked like they didn't even wash their face. I'm not judging, to each his own. To each his own. But what does that say a lot about the individual? So I ask you, what is your opinion when it comes to what does civility mean to you when it comes to dressing up? Or does it mean behaving with kindness no matter what you wear? I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Have you seen this in action on flights? Like, what do you say? Or you just accept it because you know that wouldn't be you, or because how we are in the Caribbean, it's just not what we would do. It's just certain things that we wouldn't do. But I'm seeing the younger generation, younger than me, like my sons, that age group, they're just very casual. Is it because they didn't raise up in an era, or they haven't been raised up in an era where it is what they're seeing on TV, even though how they dress to go to work, even that now is relaxed. Pretty much some of them look like they just come out of their bed to don't know what an iron is or an ironing board. Do you think that that is really where society is going? That eventually, it's just going to be, but where does that put this leader of government in the United States? Is that another signal where control is concerned? Is that another step into controlling what people wear and all of that sort of stuff? Because this is the first time that, to my knowledge, that someone like that has called this out. And this is why it has sparked such a debate. So at the end of the day, is this where we're heading? Valerie Lindo says, people need to take pride in how they look. Pajamas is sleepwear, not street clothes. I don't wear them, so not me, but all the same. Yeah, to each his own. The woman, that's what they, oh, but that's the lady in the, yeah, I was embarrassed for her. But again, these days it's like, so what? Who are you? Mind your own business. I do what I want. But where do you actually tell them that that's not right? That cover yourself. I mean, let's say it was one of those really short, like Daisy Dukes, cottony stuff, and then on a thong or something, but there was no baggy. There was no underpants. And we weren't Barbie either, for the record, not discriminating. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Sabrina Speaks. Weird topic. How are you?
Good evening, Sabrina. How are you today?
I'm okay.
I see that I trust. I see that this subject today is well. I know you said we could discuss anything,
Oh
including
yeah,
what we
yeah, yeah.
discussed
I got.
yesterday. Now,
Remember, I got to do content.
yeah, exactly. Now, I really want to speak to you about some calls I received regarding our call yesterday, and there's a few people who said they wanted a few things explained a bit more.
Okay.
But before I get to that, let me talk about what you are talking about now. Now, I am not by any means a fashion icon or fashion analyst or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have family experience as well, which in which I've lived this matter of how to dress. My youngest son, who is about 30 now, he grew up mostly well, not mostly, for a little while in the Caribbean. So it was every time, like when we were in Cayman, we say, okay, we're going to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Now we would get up and we wouldn't dress in a suit, but we are going on an aeroplane, we would dress in a certain way. And then he would say, he would wear his slippers, he's got these shorts, and he really didn't want to look any different from the way he would look when he's going to see the friend next door.
Correct.
So when we say, well, why don't you put on some shoes? I mean, we are not going to the beach. He said, no, what's wrong with this, And I just had to appreciate over time that his view of going on an aeroplane was never the occasion it was when I was young. When I was young, when we moved we lived in a place which was like 3 miles out of the center of town. When we were going to get on the bus, we dressed in a certain way. We are going to the center of town. We're going to meet a lot of people there.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's what we used to do, but things have just changed. I mean, I walked into supermarkets recently, and I've seen this, maybe it's a fad of some kind. People, I looked at this person, I said, this looks like a pajama.
Mm-hmm.
This looks like pajamas.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently it is a kind of fashion now. The way it is, like lace material used to be an undergarment for women.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, they started now putting it on the external side to look in a certain way. And it became kind of accepted in a certain situation. Some conservative offices up to today won't allow that. But I guess these are the generational things. And yet I think we should continue saying, and I do see how you're saying, well, if
how
you
far?
Are on Cayman Airways, you are an ambassador. How far?
How far? How far?
So?
Yeah.
How far? Yeah. But anyway,
it could be freedom of expression. It could be, clothing. You wear your clothes for expression, but really, how far? We don't need to see what the Lord gave you in a restaurant or on a flight.
Well, there are some people who want to see it, depending who you are and who they are. But that's another story, because you see, this is the issue I had a little bit with last time. There were issues about Barabanu and how some people were too scantily dressed and so on and so forth. Now, there were some people who thought, well, some people should have been a little bit more covered up. But there are some people who said, hey, but this is what Carnival is about. There are some people who come to Carnival precisely because people are very, very scantily dressed, so long as they are not outright naked. Yeah, but anyway, that's another debate. Now, yesterday we spoke a little bit about the whole immigration issue, a very expansive discussion, but there's just one issue I want to touch on a little bit. You touched on it yourself. One or two people called me to say there's one or two things they didn't understand, particularly about this issue of how this new law will affect people who are in Cayman. They wanted a little bit more elucidation on that.
What do you mean, like the transitional side of things, or in Cayman period?
The transitional clause. Exactly. The conditional clause, which some people are calling the sellout clause.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, now I just want to drill down on that. But before I say that, let me just say a few preliminary small things. First one, I don't think that people should be saying, I've heard some people saying, oh, look, I think I trust this government. I think they are going to do the right thing. Now, to me, I don't believe that any government should be trusted. I'm not saying that all of them are dishonest, but accountability exists, because once people get into government, they have pressures. Okay. So to me, if I can be very cruel about this, if you can trust this government, if you say you trust this government, I think you need to have your head examined, or you are just trying to be nice. Because you remember since 2003, 2004, with the mass grants, people said they trusted that government. They trusted it, but look at what the government did. By the way, those grants were not given by one individual; they were given by cabinet.
Exactly.
And then since then, exactly, and then after that, the new party came in. We might as well mention the party. The Cayman Islands Democratic Party is the one whose cabinet gave out the mass grants, and then the PPM came in and they condemned that and so on and so forth. But what did they do? They also introduced TLEPs, where people were not supposed to get status or PR, were supposed to sign something when they come to say they want to apply for status. But then when they came in, they didn't implement that policy, so they were equally guilty. I remember Mr. Anthony Eden in Parliament actually saying, this is also a mass grant. This is totally wrong and so on. So to me, all governments, in my view, have failed to sort out in a meaningful way the whole issue of immigration. Also, even if there's good faith, it will be very difficult to do now immigration because they have left it too long. People in the private sector, as much as they may have genuine concerns, which need to be listened to by government, but let us face it, there is an element of scare tactics as well.
Right.
They don't want people in the private sector don't really want to employ Caymanians. They want to get work permits so that they can pay people a little less, and they might be less problematic and so forth. And the people in the private sector, particularly if they are not Caymanian, they are not concerned about the legacy of Cayman in future and so on. They are concerned about business.
Right.
And also, it is important for people to realize that for any major measure that you are going to effect in any society, there's going to be what economists call the opportunity cost. In other words, the downside of it. Now, people have to be ready that a very meaningful economic immigration reform could result maybe in some reduction of business, maybe. But even if there's to be maybe 5-7% reduction in business, people have to be ready to pay that price for the larger price, which is to try and preserve their legacy. So it's just more a reality check that people shouldn't think that it should be very easy. But that's it. Let's talk about this issue about how the new immigration law affects, or we expect it to affect, the people who are in Cayman already, which is dealt with in clause 35 of the bill. Having been a parliamentarian, you know that when a bill is a bill, we call the sections clauses. Okay, when it is passed, then we call them sections.
Because that would then be section 83A.
Exactly.
Even though it's a clause
83A.
83A, and if you don't mind, for the sake of those, if passed, it reads section further transitional matters, and I quote, where prior to the commencement of the relevant amending section of the Immigration Transition Amendment and Validation Act 2025, subsection A, an application was made under the Principal Act, and the application has not been determined on the date of commencement of the applicable amending section of the Immigration Transition Amendment and Validation Act 2025. And then it goes on to subsection B. An appeal or an application for judicial review was made against a decision in respect of an application made under the Principal Act, and the appeal or the application for judicial review has not been determined on the date of the commencement of the applicable amending section of the Immigration Transition Amendment and Validation Act 2025, the application, the appeal, or the application for judicial review, as applicable, shall be determined as if the application amending section of the Immigration Transition Amendment and Validation Act 2025 had not come into force.
Yeah. Put it simply, once you have reached that stage of your application or your appeal, everything will continue to be dealt with under the old law.
Correct. In layman's terms.
Okay.
Once an
In layman's
application
terms,
is
yeah.
submitted, it's being processed. Whatever this new law comes about, it will not impact your pending application.
Yes. And then they have the new proposed new 83A uppercase A7, which says, notwithstanding anything under the Immigration Transition Amendment and Validation Act 2025, the term limit of a person who, who A, was a worker under the Principal Act, or B, on or after the commencement of the provisions referred to in Section 1.3 of the Immigration Transition Amendment Validation Act, meaning this Amendment Act, becomes a civil servant, shall continue to run from the date on which the person became a worker, and the end of that person's term shall be calculated based on the date and in accordance with the Principal Act. Now, what they seem to be saying here is that in addition to what you read earlier of the people who have already applied
for application
and, or are in the process of appeal, they will be dealt with under the old law. They are also saying, if you were already in Cayman before this act comes into force, the same thing will apply to you. In other words, to you as well. In other words, this new law won't apply to you.
Correct.
Okay.
Because it didn't say an employee of government. They weren't specific. They referred to the term limit of a person. It didn't say anything else.
Yeah. So in other words, there are really three categories of people who we should be talking about. One, those who have already applied, who are specifically covered or are in the process of appeal. They have said that those, what will apply to them is the old law. Then secondly, what they haven't expressly said, but they've indirectly said, they are also saying that those people who have reached the eligibility years, like you want PR, you've reached 8 years. You want status, you have reached 13 years. They mean that those as well, the law applicable will be the old law. Okay, so in other words, if you are just somebody or you've reached 18 years or 15 years, you're still putting together your papers before you apply. That subsection 7, the way I read it, it is saying that you too, you will be governed by the Principal Act, meaning the old law. So, yeah. And then there's a third category. Those who came to Cayman or are already in Cayman right now, but have not applied, and also they have not reached the age of the state of eligibility where they can apply, where you are just like you've been here for a couple of months. That section, the one I read, is saying effectively that for you as well, that for you as well, the applicable law will be the old law.
Yeah. It's anybody who is here.
Exactly.
Already.
Anybody who has applied, is appealing, or is eligible, is in the process of appealing, or you are already in Cayman, but you haven't even become eligible to apply. All those people are going to be governed by the old law. Okay. Now, did the government have to create such a wide exception? Technically, legally, no. Because if they wanted to, as a matter of law, they could have just said, whether you have applied or not, whether you are on appeal, whether you are eligible, you are in the process of applying, or you came here a few months ago, they can say, if they wanted to, in law, that the new law will apply to you. There's nothing legally wrong with doing that. So what they have done this as a matter of policy. And I think what government should be doing, they should tell the people that what they are doing is they are creating these exceptions for these three classes. They should make it clear that the reason they are doing this is because there's a legal impediment, but they are just doing this as a matter of policy, because I think people want to find out why they've done it this way.
Well,
and the reason why it is
that's where not knowing or publicizing regulations is an injustice to the people.
Well, yeah, and I'll say that about that. It's an injustice to the people. It is. So they have to come out very clearly and say that I would love the legislation actually to have these three categories clearly stated in one section so that people understand that. Now, what is the significance of this exemption? The significance of this exemption means that you will not expect to see reductions in PR or status grants in the next 9 years.
Literally.
Okay?
Correct.
Yeah, literally. You are not going to see any reduction in grants. If anything, you might see even an increase because there are all these work permits which have been given up to now. There's about 35,000 now, and they expect next year there might be even 40,000.
Over 40.
Exactly. Over 40. And so all those are people who will be able to apply for status. Okay, those who come after next year, they will apply under the new law. But all those people who are already here, I mean, government should tell us, for example, in other words, put it this way, if there are about 35,000 work permits now, by virtue of these exceptions they've created, all those 35,000 will be eligible to apply under the old law. So this law will never really start biting, if you like, until at the end of 9 years. I just feel that government haven't explained that very, very well.
Because they probably didn't see the unintended consequences. What we saw in a document that I found is that that the population right now is estimated at approximately 89,000. And expat trips comprising for over 55%. Now, this document was pretty much just put into circulation, dated the 17th of October, 2025. And if we're saying that is what our population is, and we only have a percentage of expatriates comprising over 55%, this was something that Denny spoke about. We really don't know what the true population is of Caymanian. Whether it be status, whether it be born, we still don't know what the true number is of Caymanian. But for this government being released under this with this background information, that at the time of this, the number in public was 89,000, of which 55% comprised of expatriates. But yet we're still looking, as you say, for the next 9 years, everyone who's coming in, as long as this law has not yet been commenced, every person that is landing on the shores as we speak on a work permit as a resident will be entitled to apply for PR.
Under the old law. Because
under the old law.
Anybody who has, anybody who's been here, anybody who is here now and has not applied or is in one of these categories and so on, they are entitled to apply under the old law. Even those who come on the 31st of December.
Yeah.
Okay. Even those who come on the 31st of December will apply under the old law. And then when you go back to that statistic you've given, 55% are expat. You can say 45% are not expat. But of those 45%, I'm quite sure about half of them are actually status holders. So again, it goes back to the real Caymanians being about 28%. It's a question of whether the Caymanians are happy with that or not, and I don't believe that they are. But let me mention something else about relating to this same thing of consultation. Dr. Sabrina, this will sound unkind, but I want to say it. The quality of debate in the Legislative Assembly is very high in respect of economic matters, social matters, finance, and politics itself. The debate quality is very high in the Legislative Assembly. However, in terms of the ability of members of parliament to analyze a bill and be able to explain it to people, that is very, very low. It is actually lower than some other parliaments I've seen. And the reason for that is because they have never been trained on how to analyze a bill. Some of my fellow retirees who I teach legislative drafting with in Canada today, what they are doing is going to different parliaments and helping members of parliament learn how to analyze a bill. In order for you to analyze a bill, you need to have knowledge of the principles of how statutes are interpreted. Very complex subject. And I believe that if the MPs had been actually schooled on statutory interpretation, they would have better understood the transitional provisions which are there.
Aye.
You also need to understand the judicial review, because judicial review, a lot of people think that judicial review is supposed to change a decision if it is wrong. Well, judicial review is not supposed to even change a decision. For example, a court will never tell you that, well, Immigration Appeals Tribunal, you guys, you made a wrong decision, you must give this person PR. A court will never say that. All it will say is, you never followed the procedure, you never followed this principle, you never followed that principle. So we are quashing your decision. So we are asking you now, you go back and reconsider it in a light of our guidance.
Oh, wow.
Now, in practice, usually that means that the court, rather the tribunal, in practice, usually they'll say, hey, do we want to fight this again? Let's give this person PR. But if they wanted, they could say, okay, we have taken on board the guidance given by the court. We have looked at it, but we are making the same decision. We are making it on different grounds, but we are making decisions. We are making a decision still to deny you PR. And there are cases which will go back to court. And after it goes back to court, the court will say this time, well, we gave guidance. They looked into the guidance. They have still come up with the right decision. We can't now touch it because I think they've made the decision the right way. That's what judicial review does. It never actually undoes a decision forever. All it does is say, was it lawful? If it wasn't lawful, go and reconsider it. In fact, I have written to the speaker, Mr. Miller. I've told him, I said, look, I designed a couple of courses on judicial review, legislative process, and statutory interpretation to help your MPs. If you would like me to assist them in that, get in touch with me. So I wrote to him this week because I think it will be very, very important for members of parliament to understand this. And in particular, this deficiency, in my view, has shown itself really in a bad way in relation to the immigration bill. Let me mention another example, although this one doesn't have to do with immigration. You know, when one minister, I won't call his name, and it wasn't you, by the way, it was a minister in the last government, made an announcement to say, well, there will be certain fees which will be going up relating to, I think it was the credit union. And he announced that they'll be going up. And then there was an uproar, oh, that will be too high, and this and that and so forth. You know what the mistake was with that? You don't announce such a decision before cabinet has a look at it. Some governments have actually been brought down when things like that have leaked. Whenever you want to consult with the public, first you go to cabinet to say, what is the basis upon which we are going to consult for important things like that? Again, if that minister had done my little course on the legislative process, he wouldn't have done that. Oh, by the way, Sabrina, I'm still looking for a partner in the Cayman Islands to help me offer the courses down there.
Okay.
So that if you are up for it, get in touch with me off air, but not now. So
one thing with you, I can call you a hustler. All due respect.
That I am in a way, yeah. Now, the last point I want to make, we touched upon it last time. There's been this issue about regulations, right? About regulations, they've said, oh no, but you see, regulations are not usually made public and so on. And of course, the answer to that is that if they are important, they should be made public. Go down to, I've actually given this advice to one or two politicians. I hope they raise it. In section 28.2 of the Interpretation Act, 28.2 of the Interpretation Act, that provision says, whenever in any law there is reference to, quote, affirmative resolution, unquote, in relation to regulations, that will mean that whenever regulations are made, they should be subject to the approval of Parliament before they come into force. So in other words, if you go into section 35, the one we've been discussing, there are provisions there which say that they are going to make regulations in relation to limitations, conditions, and exemptions. If you can add in that provision to say regulations made under this section shall be subject to affirmative resolution.
Mm-hmm.
What it will mean is that they can make the regulations, but they will not come into effect until Parliament approves them.
Right.
Yeah. However, you see, normally you would not bring the law in force before those regulations are approved.
Correct.
Because because the two work
together. One is the operational arm, and then the other one is substantive. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But if they decide to do it like that, I don't see that the law can come into effect on the 1st of January, because I think it would take some time for the regulations to be called, to be Parliament to be called to consider them, and so on and so forth.
But not only that, doesn't the governor has to consent to it as well? They can debate that on the floor of Parliament, and she doesn't have to consent.
You mean to consent to the regulations?
No, the law itself.
Okay, yeah. Because you see, the other thing that can happen, is good that you raise that. What they can decide to do, they can pass the law if they want. I mean, it's better if they don't pass the law until the regulations are approved. But let us imagine they insisted on that, because this is politics. You never know what they will decide. Let us imagine the government insisted and they said, look, we still want to pass at least the act.
Right.
Then what they could do is they can pass the act, and then the governor can assent, and you can publish the bill as an act, but it won't come into effect straight away. They can say specifically that it won't come into effect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That it will only come into effect once the regulations are in force. So meanwhile, then they will do the regulations, and then that's when it will come into force. Now, I don't want to get too technical, Sabrina.
And I want to stick a pin. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Once you say that, then I want to go to some comments, because some people are asking questions. Go ahead.
Okay, yes, sure. You see, there is a provision in the interpretation law again, which says that once a bill has been assented to, but before it comes into force, the government can do all those things that are necessary as preparatory measures to bring it into force. So in other words, once it's assented to, although it's not in force, government has cabinet has the power to make the regulations, and then it can declare that the regulations and the act will come into force at the same time. Actually, we did that in relation to the traffic law way back. I drafted the traffic law about 2011 thereabouts, and so what we did was the act came into was assented to, but didn't come into force straight away. Then we did the regulations. And then we wrote it in such a way that the act would come into force today, the regulations would come into force the next day.
Okay.
So that is something, again, which has been done before.
And gazetted. All these things have to be gazetted as well.
Exactly. Well, that's what I had to say. I understand there's some questions.
Hold on. Yeah, there is. Actually, you got Denver, who says, I'll be your partner. But Anita says, so what does the present government need to do as soon as possible? That is in regards to everything that I'm thinking when Anita sent this question through, was when you were talking about the whole PR with persons being here on island, even now that they themselves would be able to apply for PR, from what your interpretation is and pretty much what I read as well. So she's asking, what does the present government need to do as soon as possible? Is there somewhere where that can be overturned? Now, Anita, the honorable minister did say that there are 15 amendments as well, that those amendments to what we are privy to already and what was discussed in town hall meetings, no one knows what those 15 amendments are, but yet they will be amended at committee stage in Parliament. I'm not aware if prior to them going to Parliament, if the public will be appraised or apprised of what these 15 amendments are. So we don't know if these are some of the things that have made head. But your take on that, Mr. Balika?
Yes, you see, and the fact that that caller, that messenger is sending in that message, it just shows you the need for people to see the regulations and to see the proposed amendments before they go to the House. Now, on the assumption that that caller is suggesting that the new law should apply to everybody, including all those three categories, including people who have not applied yet and those who are just in Cayman. what the government needs to do is just to amend this law and make it clear that the new law will apply to all these categories. In other words, whether have applied, you are on appeal, whether you are eligible but you haven't applied, whether you are not yet eligible but you're already in Cayman, the government can say and put it in the current
Be
bill
clear. Be
and
clear.
say that
Mhm.
and make it clear that it applies to all this. Now, if you ask me as a human being, from a policy angle, I would say maybe you want to allow those who've already applied and those who are going through the appeals, that maybe you want to exempt those, although even you could include those as well. I think you would want to exempt those because they've already invested something. Legally, they don't have a right. But at least from a human side, you might say, well, maybe exclude those. But those who haven't applied and those who are just in Cayman are not yet even eligible, you might say, no. With you guys, we are going to say it in this very bill. We won't even put it in the regulations. We will say in this very bill that this law applies to you as well. That would be the answer to that. But the other answer, I think you've already given to her, that there are 15 amendments to be made. But we do not know whether this is going to be one of those. But to me, I think what government needs to do, they need to explain it better. And in my view, I would just recommend that you are not ready to bring it into force on the 1st of January. Because you see, if you bring it into force on the 1st of January, and then you haven't effected these other matters, and then you go ahead, you will be exempting teachers, you will be exempting the police, and I think it is the people in the health services, then essentially you would have done nothing. Because if you do that, if you don't exempt these, then it will mean, you see, essentially the only reductions in PR grants that you're going to have will probably be any marriages of convenience which will have been annulled. And how many are those? They were investigating, I think, about 200 and 250. The
How many have gotten to court? Like, really, how long does it take?
Exactly. And then you may maybe revoke some 75 grants or so. But at the end of the day, if you are granting about 12 to 1,500 grants per year, that won't have any effect.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, that is really the issue.
Hold on. We got another comment and 2 questions. So the caller re-pertaining to the subject, you may have saved some people legal costs by explaining this issue in detail. That's a comment. A question is, thank you. That's you doing good on this American Thanksgiving Day. Tartarian says, did those people who got the status from the mass grants pay for it? If not, they need to pay for it now.
Okay. I think you can answer this. You worked in immigration, and
those persons were there wasn't any fees. They were just granted it as a grant. My memory serves me well. Yeah. There was no payment. They just came over and we double checked the lists and they got stamped up and they got their certificate, was what my memory serves me well. I stand to be corrected, but I'll double check that because I was there during that time. As the Assistant Secretary of the Status and Permanent Residency Board, then being appointed by Cabinet in Exco those days is what they had it called. And we just saw the list coming over. That was in my job. There's another question.
So let me just add something to a little bit to that one. It may be that there might have been a small application fee, maybe. I don't know. But
I think it was nominal, to be honest. If it was, I think even if they paid it with 500, it was nominal.
Yeah, some little amount. The other thing about that, I don't know if the questioner also had in mind perhaps things such as PR fees. Because people who get status, once you get status, you don't pay any annual dues. It stops. But when you've got PR, then you have to pay your PR fees annually.
Correct.
And if you don't pay them, then it can be revoked. So maybe they were also thinking of that.
Denver was saying so many laws can be changed by government to protect them and or people. And he further says, no, they should be removed if they have not paid and be removed from the jurisdiction. I get Denver. If they didn't pay, for what? Their status or their PR fees? Because one of the things, you're in the legal thing. People who are delayed in paying their annual fees, and I'm so happy that you brought that up. It's amazing. And I brought this up on a previous episode of Sabrina Speaks, where even if they default on paying their annual right to work fees, and they have been given notice by the Caymanian Status and Permanent Residency Board for non-payment, whatever it goes to collections, whatever, if they come, let's say they're given a payment plan and all of this sort of stuff, and they falter, let's say, on that, and they don't make, keep up to speed with the payment plan, there still can be revoked for non-compliance, but yet they're still entitled to an appeal. I think exactly what I've described to you is what's frustrating Caymanians, because they're saying, if you're not paying, why should you have to go through all of that process? Now, that's just a layman thinking. But when you look at it from constitutional, from the legal aspects of things, how far does a country have to go for these people then to come up with some sort of reason why they couldn't pay these fees and still ended up keeping it, knowing they were in default of the conditions of their very approval? I think people are saying, if you don't pay 1 year, how can you afford to pay 2 or 3 and then still challenge the Cayman Islands law because you faltered in your approval condition? People are saying they shouldn't be given those amount of chances.
And those concerns are genuine, and they must be addressed. You see, the way the law is actually, it says that if you don't pay for, like if they are overdue for 3 or 6 months, it's not a very long period of time. If you don't pay for a certain period of time, it's not a number of years. It's actually just a few months. If they are overdue for a certain number of months, as I remember it, don't quote me on the actual period of time.
They usually had a threshold of 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. So within that time, if you don't pay, they have a specific power under the law to revoke the PR. Now, the implied rule of that, this is where the implied rules of judicial review come in. Even if the law doesn't say they should give you a time to have a payment plan, the courts will always say you should give somebody notice. You should say, hey, look, you have not paid for the requisite period of time, 3 or 6 months. We are minded to revoke your PR. Please give us a reason why, sure cause why we should not revoke it. Or if you want to maintain this, you tell us if you are ready to enter into a payment plan. They always say before you actually take the action, there's an implied rule of natural justice that you should give the person a chance to say something. But if they respond and they say, well, yes, I still want the status and so on and so forth, and they don't give a story, for example, that maybe they had sent the money in, but it didn't go in or something. If there's no legal thing they can rely on, they can just say, okay, fine, we've given you a chance to explain. You just say you've got no money, but that's not enough, and we'll revoke it. You see, the cases where there might be a genuine case are like, there's one case I know of, actually there were several people, they were giving money to a certain immigration consultant to pay PR fees every year for them. You know, like these big firms who have no time to go to the office there. But this consultant, immigration consultant, was not sending it in. So when the time came now for the board to revoke, they wrote to these people, they said, look, you are not paying. Then that's when the people found out that the money they were giving to the firm was not finding its way to the board. Now, those kinds of people, the board can say, well, it wasn't your fault. We'll give you time.
That's discretionary.
That's discretionary. They put a discretion to do that. But those are the real answers to that. But the other thing about this, by the way, it's a policy issue, though. You know, it used to be that if you can't get a job as a PR holder, you didn't have to pay PR fees way back. But I think they amended it later on to say whether or not you get a job,
the fee is applicable. The fee is applicable on the anniversary.
Exactly.
You didn't
And
have
I
a
remember
choice of a variation to prove, because who would be out there to say that you're not working? It would be like for those persons who may have retired as well or take sabbatical and says, "Oh, I'm on sabbatical. I didn't work between this time and no, no, that's hard to prove."
Yeah, you see, because there was somebody I was trying to help way back informally after I left the government. I just used to know him as a neighbor, and he came to me, called me up, and said, "Well, look, they have given me a letter to show cause why they should not revoke my PR." By that time, he was about to get married to a Caymanian lady, and then I told him, I said, "Well, look, the way the law is written, even if you have shown that you've been looking for a job, you can't get a job and this and that and so forth, the law doesn't make allowance for all those.
Correct.
It just says that if you've got PR, whether you've got a job or not, you're supposed to pay." To me, I've always felt that if you don't have a job and you show efforts that you're trying to get a job, I really think that you should not be required to pay. Now, the problem with that, I think, is the supervision can be very difficult. It can be very difficult to supervise.
It is hard to
because,
manage, and I think that's why immigration removed themselves from that, because it would just take too much manpower to determine whether or not somebody is working. And thank God they didn't go that route, Mr. Balika, because with digital age right now, you could be home working remote in another country, and who would be to say you're not working on this? They are then looking at what monies go through your account, which does not have to go through your account. That could be a breach of confidentiality. So you know what? At the end of the day, we cannot micromanage you, and I think that is why it was clear cut. This is your fee. It's due on this anniversary. Whether or not you're working, you got to pay the fee.
Yeah, you got to pay the fee. Like a lot of things, there's always pros and cons and so on. And the government clearly looked at it and said, look, we can't really manage this. We just have to ensure that, people can pay their fees. But this guy, you see what he told me? He said, Caymanians tell you, look, it's difficult to get a job if you're a Caymanian because people want to employ expatriates. And this guy, after he got PR, and he was paid off by a certain company in Cayman. Then now he was trying to look for a job. He said, suddenly, I couldn't get a job. Nobody wanted to employ me. And this is a guy, a UK-trained engineer. He worked in international companies and so on. He couldn't get a job in Cayman once he had gotten PR.
Oh, wow.
And so he told me, he says, now I understand when Caymanians say that, look, if you are a local person, you're
at a disadvantage.
Or you've got status, you are at a disadvantage. Nobody wants to employ you.
It's funny enough,
let's hope.
I had a friend as well who got married to Caymanian and found the same thing shortly when the contract was up for renewal or at an anniversary. They were told, I'm sorry, I'm downsizing the company. I no longer need your service. And that only came about after they realized that they were married to Caymanian. And they gotten their RERC.
And that's why, yeah. And that's how, as I learned more about Caymanian society, I got to see how valid the complaint of Caymanians and PR holders is that, look, before you have any status in Cayman and you are on a work permit, you can get a job. But once you have established some status there, people don't want to employ you.
But do you feel that speaks a lot about what's happening in, let's say, then private sector and the culture of the HR then? And why so? Because is it that they use the work permit as a noose around employees' necks that they can take advantage of them, but because they then acquire Caymanian status, RERC, as a spouse of a Caymanian, spouse of a PR holder or status, that they know that they can't take advantage of you? That speaks a lot about the poor culture that is surrounding the restrictions with somebody on a work permit versus those who are free of immigration control in the term for this conversation.
Yeah, it is, and that's why really it is important that government be supported in what they are trying to do around work permits, and that they do it right, because these are the things that people face in the private sector. I think there was another story in the paper again recently about a lady who was working for this firm, and they ended up training somebody, and that somebody in the end took over their job, and suddenly they didn't have a job. These are things that government needs to look at. That's why I was very, very disappointed that you're still there.
Yes, I am. I'm just getting another WhatsApp
Yeah, okay.
call.
I had a ping. I just wasn't sure. Yeah, okay. You see that's the issue, because look at Regulation 6, which I think we spoke about yesterday. Regulation 6 of the immigration regulations, which says currently it says that if you apply for a work permit, the board may request succession plan. But how can you say may request a succession plan? That provision used to say shall. And then they watered it down. And that really needs to come back, because that's one of the areas where government has to be able to force these people to have a succession plan. You remember when Chris Saunders was Minister of Immigration, he had made a statement saying, well, look, if we find the company is not really looking out for Caymanians, we'll scrutinize your work permit a little bit more closely. Now, for you to be able to scrutinize it more closely, you need that provision to say shall, because then you can say, hey, look, this is what the law requires us to do. Give us a succession plan. Government also needs to me, they need to amend the public service management law. Just give a very clear thing. They should say, if you are a Caymanian, you qualify for the job, you should be given the job. I mean, that doesn't mean that even if you are qualified, maybe you've got a drink problem, a drug problem, okay, then they don't have to appoint you. But if you qualify and everything is all right, they should appoint you. I remember actually, I don't usually like quoting people, but safely I can quote Mr. Ezra Miller when he was in the backbench. He raised this in Parliament. He said, you know what? Why is it that you can have a deputy today, and then the boss retires or goes back where they came from? There's a deputy who is a Caymanian. The references are good. He qualifies for the job. Has been in the department for a very long time. Why do you even have to advertise the job? Now, I came from a country where, in certain circumstances, they could appoint you even without advertising the job if the certain board approves it or so on. Or if they advertise it, they would advertise it only internally within government, knowing very well that they can get a candidate within government. Those are things that really the government should look into to ensure that within government they can move Caymanians up. Now, it's much more difficult to control in the private sector, because these are these are private entities. But so long as they also have to apply for a work permit, there's something you can do. But in relation to government, there is a much greater scope for the government to just do these things, put them in the public service management law, and ensure that people are being appointed. But at the moment, that's not happening to an extent which I think would be appropriate. So,
okay, well, there we go.
well,
Thank you so
Sabrina,
much. I hope that we gave
thanks
more
very
clarity.
much,
on that, and
I hope
that
that
people
we did. Yes, I hope so.
Yeah. Thanks. Always a pleasure speaking to you. Be in touch.
Take care.
All
Same
right.
here.
Take
Cheers.
care. Bye-bye. There we have it. Let me return that other call. Yeah, once it's WhatsApp, it's hard for me to join calls, because that's just how the system is. Straight calls to straight calls is fine, but not with WhatsApp. It's something you can't do the two. Good evening, and where have you been? Under the rock like SpongeBob and Patrick?
No, I've been trying to get on, but
well,
you have some
you got 45 minutes.
technological disadvantages.
No, Mr. Between the two of you guys, this is like going to college. But it's good.
Well,
People are loving it. People are enjoying it. I tell you the truth, Danny.
But I don't plan to be 45 minutes.
I'm just letting you know. Yeah.
I think that a lot of serious stuff has been discussed so far. But I think the things that are unacceptable is for the government to make 15 changes, and we have no idea what that's going to look like. And that's like agreeing to to build a plane, and then they got our permission, and then you hear that they're going to make all sorts of changes,
Modifications.
but we don't know what they're going to be. That's foolishness. The the thing that jumped out at me there in this last conversation is people wanting to hire non-Caymanians over Caymanians. There is a number of people who would prefer to exploit non-Caymanian workers.
It's happening.
And I think that is extremely disappointing that would be a preference. We need to really do something about that, because ultimately that affects all of us.
You can't do anything if the victims are not reporting it, and this is where we're saying the gatekeepers need to gatekeep. But if they use their powers to go in and just do random checks, you still need people who are willing to speak up.
Or you could have a better immigration policy to begin with. Like one of the things that he pointed out just now is the ambiguity about those who are here, haven't attained the right to apply yet. So that kind of stuff, I don't know if that's accidental. I mean, I'd be surprised if that's accidental.
We don't know if that's one of the 15 changes because of unintended consequences. So we're speaking in the wind because we don't know.
Well, I know, but think about that for a second.
Yeah.
We have a government that doesn't want to really engage the public on such an important piece of legislation. I would imagine that the political considerations that would go into something like this is, okay, ladies and gentlemen, on issues that are controversial, shut your mouth. Let's just get the bill passed. That's just the summary of what I think the discussion would have been. But I don't think that is the essence of genuine public consultation. Because what's happening is that we're getting marketing, and what we should be
it's a sales pitch more than an interactive engagement, take your feedback type of thing.
Right. We need to have a genuine conversation about these things, not highfalutin language, clean, simple language that ordinary people can understand. And I know they're capable of doing it. But after all of what we've heard, it's clear that there are issues. And this thing about the regulations, they could be asking for powers under the regulations that could be super dangerous and make us vulnerable to the whims and fancies of any future government, including a Makiba 2.0, which we shouldn't be putting ourselves in that situation. But the question is, what do we do now?
Exactly, which was a question that somebody had posed, and what was shared is that they lack the understanding or ability to explain these bills to the people.
Well, no, the government can explain them, but I don't think the government wants to explain the controversial issues, because that is too risky from the perspective of an MP and re-election and all that kind of stuff. So I think their desire is to avoid the controversy.
But then where's transparency and democracy?
You know, your question is talking about what ought to be, and what I'm talking about is what is. I don't think they. It's not that they don't know better, you know. I think they just don't do better. But what can be done at this moment is up to the public. And what the public ought to be doing is, if the public still have concerns about not understanding these very significant provisions properly, like meaning what the consequences of them will be. Then what we need to do is we need to tell our MPs that we're not going to settle for, the propaganda. We want proper public dialogue. And the reason why it needs to be public is because some people won't think of certain things until they hear people talking about those things.
Correct.
Just like what we're doing here today.
And repetition and give scenarios and examples.
Right. And then that will allow them to open up their thinking to questions, and who knows what else that'll lead to. But unless we do it genuinely and comprehensively, we're just going to get patchwork. And I think it would be disastrous if we don't do this properly, because having 55% of your population being non-Caymanian, that's, tell me where else in the world that you could go and do that.
And remember, it could be much less than that when you just work it out into, this is why this whole definition of who's Caymanian from who's not became so important, because as we heard the previous caller say, it could be as low as 20-something% in our own country.
Yeah. But and sometimes when you talk about these issues, people would suggest that you're being unreasonable.
It's facts.
But what my question is I want you to name one country that you could go to being not from there and make up 55% of the population. Just give me the name of one country where you could do it. I would suggest that you can't. The UK, just a few years ago, under a previous prime minister, I can't remember his name, the Indian heritage guy, I can't remember his name. He was complaining about the issue of immigration in the UK. And I looked up the numbers. I don't remember them off the top of my head now, but what I do remember was that it came up to less than 1% of the population.
Oh, wow.
And they were throwing a fit. Anybody who suggests that we're being unreasonable for having this discussion doesn't mean us good.
Yeah. Well, do you think the apprehension or the apathy is the lack thereof of knowledge, which is what we're trying to do in our most humble, with dignity way? But people are just, one, possibly in shock, or two, it's like what you say, repetition, maybe from others. And then again, you may have that chummy relationship with an MP or MPs, and based on that chummy relationship that you have, oh no, based on their tone and their poise, how they spoke to me, they reassured me that those who are talking are just troublemakers. There's nothing like that would happen. Do you think that's probably what it is, that for years, the masses of Caymanians, no matter what our percentage is, lack this public type of forum, number one, or two, just didn't know how to evoke change or to say, stop, no more. This is what we want. Like in some countries, there is no way a reform like this, of this size, having all of this type of dialogue and questions being asked, to hear that there are 15 amendments going to come forward, that you would not have had more public discussion and saying, stop, we need to see the regulations now. This has gone too far.
You know what that suggestion reminds me of? Nancy Pelosi was made famous for the following statement. When asked about what was in a bill, she says, well, you have to vote for the bill in order to find out what's in it.
Oh my goodness.
That's not a joke, that's serious. But that's essentially what they're saying to us. We just have to wait and just see what comes out of it.
And then
No,
what? What
that's
if the
that's
unintended consequences, should it be that we don't mimic what's happening someplace else, but our people need to find some sort of unity, fortitude to really, really hold persons accountable instead of just
well,
talking?
but what they're really saying by doing it this way is that we're not a genuine part of shaping the bill. Essentially, what they've done is they've engaged in PR for the purposes of checking off the box, so they can say, we did the 28 days.
Public
And we can just move
consultation.
ahead. Yeah, we can just move ahead now with what we're doing. I think that's unacceptable. And the some other elements that would play into why this is playing out the way it is some people are just genuinely working multiple jobs, trying to make ends meet, and
Correct.
just can't focus on these things the way that we're doing at this moment, right? I mean, they just don't have that kind of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there are others who may have a little more time, but they might know the people who are the MPs.
Yeah.
And they may have went to school
School
with
with
them,
my cousin, married to
grew-
my niece or my nephew. Mm-hmm.
and they grew up in my house, and my
Mm-hmm.
mother fed them, and I mean, he wouldn't do that to us,
Never, never. Mm-mm.
right? And so those things become um, emotional blocks that people find hard to overcome, because they would have to look at a person that they genuinely like and say, well, he's trying to pull a fast one on me.
Or selling a
And just,
short. I'm so disappointed.
just
Mm-hmm.
and just the thought of having to say that would cause some people to recoil.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think people need to understand is that many times governments do things that are wrong. In fact, this current government is they should be answering a question of mine that they're not addressing in the parliament, and it's a blatant disregard for the Constitution. So it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't surprise me that they would do other things. And the other thing is this: is that when you think about the Bill of Rights,
Mm-hmm.
and you think about why that is there, it is there because governments are known to act against the interests of the public.
Mm.
And so the very fact that you have that bill
Right.
is evidence that politicians will abuse your rights. Because think about it. If it was that they would not abuse your rights, then you wouldn't need a Bill of Rights. Because they would
Correct.
just respect your rights and everything would be okay.
Exactly. But the mere fact
But
we
we
have a Bill
know
of Rights
that's
speaks
not
volume.
true.
Exactly.
Right. Right. And so what we need to do as a people is to understand that when they propose to us, oh, we're going to make some changes and that's going to improve it. Well, when you hear improve in your mind, that may not mean the same thing as what improve in the mind of the politician means,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because improve in the mind of the politician means in accordance with their agenda, which might not necessarily be in our best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only way to know before you get to the stage of passing the bill is to have proper public consultation, dialogue about what these 15 changes are going to be before
Mm-hmm.
you go to the House and debate them. It's grossly inappropriate. And so what I'm saying is this. I'm going to answer the question now. What can we do? You can find the courage to say to your MP, we do not want you to do business as usual. We want to have proper dialogue about these issues before it goes to the House and be debated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's in our hands as citizens to do our part
Mm-hmm.
in the political process, because democracy is not a spectator sport.
Exactly.
You don't just sit there and watch things happen. You are a participant. Even if you omit to do the things you ought to do. You are participating by making the decision to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of decision is not what we should be doing at this point in time.
Correct.
So I would like to encourage the public to engage in this show. It doesn't matter if you think your question might be stupid or your comment might be stupid. There's no stupid questions. You put them forward. Let's air everything.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have the politicians be part of that public conversation. I want to hear their answers, because in them answering, this is what their fear is, that they might say things that might cause them more trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I'm looking at it and want this to happen in public is because I want the best outcome, so that when the bill is passed, we know we have a proper solution for the challenges that we face to protect us as a people and to continue to allow business to function efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. There was a question by Damien. Is there a cap on the amount of work permits that can be granted per year? No, not nationally, Damien. No. So the answer is no.
And my interaction with people in the government about that is, it seems they're not interested in that. And I just find that interesting, because if we look at what is in clause 35, they're essentially saying that these we're not going to get any real significant protection until way down the road.
Yeah.
Well,
there's no short term for anything where it doesn't have the demand for work permits. Well,
if you tell me on one hand you don't want a cap, and on the other hand you tell me that the provision that you want, which is clause 35, to go forward so that we don't get any near-term benefits, then what you're actually telling me is you want business as usual, but you just want the words rearranged in such a way to mislead me into believing that something's actually being done, when all you're doing is shuffling things around. It's a distinction without a difference.
You're quite right.
I'm highly offended that they would think we're that stupid.
Well, silence brings consent, and this is why we're trying to tell people, Denny, it is in their best interest to speak up. I am hoping that at the end of the day, that they will find that ability to actually speak, because remaining quiet is not helping anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would challenge people to do is to go away and contact everyone that they know, to ask the government to let's have a proper public discussion and consultation about the bill before moving it to the House. We can't do anything other than that at this point in time. And if we fail to do even that, then we're part of the problem.
Well, just looking at the statement that was presented on the floor of Parliament in the new revenue measures for 2026 and 2027, and looking at what was said leading into section 15 pertaining to work permit related fees, and I quote, as stated by the Minister of Finance and Chair of Finance Committee, it said, "Honorable Ministers, with respect to the new revenue measures related to immigration, these measures are estimated to yield an additional 15.4 million in 2026 and 17.1 million in 2027. These increases are expected," turn down, will you go in the back for me a little bit? These increases are expected from the following sources. And it says, in relation to work permit related fees, most administrative and amendment fees for work permit grants, continuation, and dependent additions will increase by 150% to 400%, with the standard work permit administration fee increasing from $100 to $500. Temporary work permit fees will increase by 150% to 200%, depending upon the income band. And C, the new annual and express work permit fees are going to be introduced, ranging from $100 to $300 based on the level of the main permit fee. You hear that? So
Well,
that's just work
yeah.
permits. I haven't gone into PR. I haven't gone into status for the
Yes,
purpose of this. So that's just work permits.
Okay, well, here's the question that comes to mind, and perhaps you can put in an FOI request for, because like when they are thinking about the formulation of policy, right? And they tell us that they're dealing with immigration so that they can bring things under control, because they're not using solid language that actually means something, right? It's these vague sayings that when you think about them, you ask yourself, what did you just say to me? Right? Well, here's the question that you'd want to ask the government. When they were formulating these fees and estimating how much they would benefit, can they tell us how many fewer work permits did they calculate that these changes to the immigration policy would achieve? And you can ask that for all of the categories, whether it be PR or whatever. Because they're giving us the impression that somehow this immigration bill is going to address Caymanians not getting work, right? Well, if a Caymanian gets a job, then that means a non-Caymanian doesn't have the job, right?
But then that number of unemployed is only 1,400. And if they were given examples of how much hotels and condominiums are coming, and then you got people who you can't stop from leaving.
Well, I want to know how many people did they calculate would be reduced, or whether it would actually result in an increase.
Correct. Well, he did say increase for sure where work permits were concerned. But we don't know the magic number either of how much pending PR applications there are and how much status applications there are either. Remember that.
Well,
that was one of the questions that you had.
Yeah, but so they should have done an analysis to figure out what it is that they would be achieving by those policies, right? So what exactly would they be achieving in terms of numbers in these different categories? Because your background is in immigration, so you can word how it should be asked, right?
No, I got you.
So yeah, because that would help us to understand, like, what will the immigration bill actually achieve for us? Because that's something we need to talk about.
I think the hard conversation that they're having as members of parliament without disappointing who stood by them, who's supporting them to be the saving grace where immigration is reform is concerned, is that the reality has hit them based on the narrative that they used on the campaign trail. That when they then get elected and they see exactly the guts is open, and what we have found, that it's going to be a rough ride, but we can't just execute like Clint Eastwood. And that's the fearful of the conversations being had. So they'll prefer to skirt around it, become an ambrosia salad with their words, instead of being upfront, transparent, and honest of the realities and the unfortunate situation that our country has found ourselves in, where the demand of foreign workers and the balance of inward investment has to be level but with a percentage of really being only like 20-something% of Indigenous people, of course, we're going to feel as though we are being trampled on by those who have elected. But at the end of the day, I think what's coming out of all of this discussion is that we need the inward investment for us to continue to live. And that is a delicate balance in some formula that they have to try and figure out how they're going to address their people in real time and not make the people feel that they're yet being disappointed.
Yeah, but you see, the way that, okay, when I thought about what the policy should be around a cap on the number of people becoming Caymanian and so forth, and when it's dealing with work permits and all of that kind of stuff, you can have people that can come to your country and work, but that doesn't mean that it's a guarantee that they can stay. Not everyone can stay, because if they were to stay, we would become such a small percentage of the population so quickly that the face of Cayman would change like instantaneously. And so you have to have limits.
But this is where the requirement for PR, they tried to do with the point system, would have tried and removed discretion made by a board. So it would not have been political or individual making decisions and emotive, but they have to give, or they were looking at it from a perspective of everyone given a right to apply. It doesn't mean to be granted.
Yes, but okay, if they qualify, what would be the reason why you would say you can't have it?
Well, this is why the criteria should be elevated, which is one of the things that they're asking for. And we were hoping, where's the reform for PR? Where is the gotcha?
It doesn't matter what you say it is. If they qualify, they qualify.
Gotcha.
And what I'm saying is that the number of people who can qualify cannot be twice the rate at which our population is growing. That's unacceptable. I can't think of an instance in which that would be acceptable. In other words, the number of people the maximum number of people who should be allowed to get status in all of the circumstances should be a small percentage of the growth of our population. So if we have,
you keep saying that, I don't think people are understanding it.
If you have 500 Caymanians being born a year, and you're having 200 deaths a year, the net change in the population is 300. You can't have 3 Caymanians growing at a rate of 300 a year, but you're issuing status grants of 800 or 1,000. This is as simple as it gets. The problem is that the group that is growing at 1,000 a year versus the group growing at 300 a year, you should be easy to see which group is going to grow the fastest. And it cannot be acceptable that because of fancy verbal gymnastics, politicians are able to engineer a system that causes us to be displaced, and we sit there and just accept it.
You're quite right.
That's unacceptable. I've asked lawyers to tell me, give me one instance in which it would be acceptable for the rate of non-Caymanians to be added to the population, meaning get Cayman status, at a rate that is faster than the local population is growing, and not one of them could give me one single reason why that should be acceptable.
That speaks volumes.
Well, Can you tell me what it is that, is it how I'm explaining it that people don't understand it, or do they understand it and disagree?
I th-
I
I think there's
I just
probably I think there's probably three. First of all, it's coming from Denny. Second of all, it is in shock, in utter shock. And third, it could be because they just really don't get it. And some of us get certain things quicker than others. And then it goes down to one comment that I saw here. I think it was Miss Anita. Was it Anita? Said that some people are just tired. Okay, this kind of summed it up. I think that most of the public are tired and are just trying to keep their heads above water. They hope that the individuals that they have voted in will really do their job and do the right thing for them and the islands. So in addition to people just trying to survive, and we know what the environment is like right now at the end of the day, right? You're hoping that they are, despite Darlene saying, never put your trust into the hands of politicians. I'm paraphrasing here. People are just hoping that they will do the right thing. But there are just certain things that you can't speak, but then you lack context, breaking it down in simple forms. You're being blackballed or silenced, or they're hearing you, but you're considered just a nuisance. It is in its most, I'm talking to you. But yet they're not going to value what you're saying and what is being aired on this platform until it splatters. And then what comes is anger and rage and unrest, Danny. That's where this is headed. Then this is not inciting it.
Okay. If I was to ask you, if you had an investment account and it was growing at a rate of, let's say, 3%, and you had another investment account that was growing at a rate of 8%, which one of those accounts would you prefer be yours?
On the surface, without asking where is it coming from, I'd go for the highest because you get a better for your return. Answer, 8%.
Yeah, we'll just assume that everything is
Legit,
kosher
straight up. Of course, I'm going to go for the 8%.
Right. Okay. So it's easy to see that 8% is more than 3%.
Correct.
And so you can't have the Caymanian population growing at 3%. This is just an example. And you have the non-Caymanian population becoming Caymanian at a rate of 8%. This is just an example. You can't expect that to be the case and things work out well, because what it means is that Caymanians are being displaced.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now that I can't think, I mean, I would imagine that would be simple to understand.
Mm-hmm.
About those who don't want to hear it from me. Well, what I would say to them is that's not going to help you when the consequences of the decisions which are made start affecting you. It's not
every one of us is going, yeah.
It's not going to be any comfort to you that, well, we didn't listen to him,
correct,
but now I'm suffering.
Yeah. Everybody can feel it. Mm-hmm.
That's not the, yeah. So I consider that to be ignorance. But
this is a question for you, Dan. Go ahead. But I got a question for you that came up.
I would just suggest that people step up and be responsible, take their rightful place in society, and hold the government accountable, because it's only through us that the government will be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead with the question.
Okay, the question is from Tartarian. Basically, what Danny is saying, status should not be initiated by the guest worker. They should never have that power. They don't run the country. It should be initiated by the government. Full stop.
It's always the policy is always within the control of the government,
Mhm.
right? So they will make the laws that set the policy. But if the laws that the government makes
Mhm.
are laws that are not in the interests of Caymanians, then you could dislike me all you want, but it is not going to be in your interest no matter how you twist it, no matter which MP's phone number you call and ask for a favor.
Mhm.
Okay? Because what'll happen is that that case will ultimately most likely end up in court, in which case the judge is most likely going to say, well, we have to follow the law.
Mhm.
And if the law isn't in the favor of Caymanians, you can kick and scream as much as you want, but it's not going to help you.
Mhm.
So you could dislike me if you want, but it'll be to your own detriment if you don't listen. I listen to people who don't like me all the time because I don't care where the information is coming from.
Mhm.
I just want to hear what's being said.
Said. Mhm.
Because I'm not thinking about the person. I'm not thinking about the messenger. I'm thinking about the
Yep.
concept
And the message.
of the
Mhm.
idea that's
Correct.
being talked about.
Correct.
Right? And unless we look at things in that way, we will continue to be, as a country, generally speaking, politically immature.
There we go.
And that's not going to be in our best interest.
Nope, it's not. Oh my gosh. It's a good thing you couldn't talk to 45 minutes, and that's what I like about you. There you go. You've gone over. No, that's when the discussion is good. And I mean, Danny, I must say publicly, I thank you, Mr. Balika, and all of those persons, even Denver, every one of you who comments here. But the amount and the quality of information that you all actually contribute to this platform makes this platform worthwhile. So I don't want you to think it's only because I know that the programming now, and I don't even know, I'm just trying to get to discipline that I end at 7 because that's coming on thing. But I just want to publicly thank you. Thank you for being here and being a very valuable contributor, because like you rightfully say, people would say, oh, what she's doing in that space is good. The same feedback I'm getting here. People are very appreciative of you and what you contribute. And likewise, Mr. Balika, because you're poised, you are measured, you are thought-provoking, you come with your facts, you look like you go and you do your research, and they appreciate you. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate those words. And all I would say is that whenever you hear me talking about what I think should happen in Cayman, that's just about my genuine interest about what is best for the Cayman Islands. It's just that simple. I don't have any agendas. I don't have any axes to grind. I just want things done properly.
Yeah. Well said.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
Take care.
All right. Have a good evening. Thank you again. Sure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
As Miss Darlene says, who will stand up to hold our leaders accountable? I will, meaning she will, without falling for sweet mouth and then back down. Darlene, that is yet to be seen. And I'm hoping that by means of this platform, more and more we will have persons like yourselves willing to put yourself on the front line to stand up and hold the leaders accountable in doing the right thing. Use transparency in its true meaning. Use democracy in its true meaning for the better of everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been indeed again a pleasure of mine bringing you this edition of Sabrina Speaks. And tomorrow is Friday. Happy American Thanksgiving to all of you, again, who's celebrating it. And it has, again, a very informative show. Thank you all for your questions, your statements, your participation. It means the world to me. Until tomorrow, please, please, please do have a good evening. Be safe on the roads, or unity get what they want, or until they get what they want. personally for themselves. Gotcha, Darlene. Thank you as well, my love, for participating. But I want you to have a good evening, and until tomorrow for Wind Down Friday edition of Sabrina Speaks. Love y'all lots. Have a good night, and God bless.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.